start up with day 3 activity. So yesterday, I helped you know what an abstract is and how you structure an abstract, how you title an abstract. So what are can anyone tell me as to what are the 5 essential things that make up a standard abstract? Anyone, please?
Hello, ma'am. Good morning. So the first one is when we are going to talk about the research problem. The second one is about the objectives or the aims of the research. The third one is the methodology that is adopted. The fourth is the findings, the major findings of the research, the one which is the most prominent one. And the fifth one is the significance of the findings and how it is benefiting our society.
Excellent. Thank you, Bhakya Lakshmi. And I have gotten a mail from you. Okay, I'll reply it by the end of this day. Okay, I'll send you after correcting your abstract. And thanks for the mail. Fine. So as Bhakya Lakshmi told, Ms. Bhakya Lakshmi told, these are the 5 components that make up a standard abstract. Okay. And as I told you yesterday, for those of you who missed, abstracts the skeleton of your paper. Your full-length paper, it is given the second option. So your abstract is he or she is the king ruler, okay, whatever you call it. They are going to decide if your paper is going to get selected in a conference or getting selected in the Scopus paper, whatever it is the abstract. Abstract is the it is based on the abstract, the decision is taken. And we also have something called keywords. So what are keywords? I gave you 2 meanings yesterday for keywords.
Yes, keywords are the terms which are used frequently in our paper, which denote the major thematic concerns of our paper and which theoretical framework that we have used in the paper. These are the things that are reflected in the keywords. So there must be a minimum 4 and maximum 8 keywords in the abstract.
Excellent, Dr. J. Mehta. Okay, so keywords
Thank you,
is all those words wherein you put in all your hard work and dedication. Okay, you you supply the soul to the paper. They are all called keywords. In a nutshell, it explains the area that are covered. Sorry, I missed it. 1 second. In the paper. Oh, the areas. Okay, areas very you taper down. The areas are not very broad. Okay, your domain must be tapered down, narrow down topics. Right? Now today, we'll start up with literature review. Literature review. So once you finish your abstract and say if your abstract is selected, they say your paper is selected, we need the full length paper. They'll give you almost at least 2 months of time or minimum of 1 month of time for you to prepare the paper. So your very next step will be preparing a literature review, making a literature review. Now, what is your idea of literature review? I think there may be many people who have already finished your research, and those of you, the remaining, maybe you are in the process of doing your research. What is this concept called literature review? Yes, you can, if you are not able to talk, you can just type it so that I can read it for you. Yeah, this will be the slide, Ms. Janvi. Thank you so much. From slide
Yes,
6.
ma'am. So literature review is basically we are listing down the thesis, articles, books that is written in the specific area that we are focusing on, and it is also helping us realize the kind of research that has been already done in the particular domain that we are trying to delve into.
So whatever you say, I'm just typing it here over the chat box. Thank you, Bhakya Lakshmi. Anyone else?
Ma'am, one of the major roles of literature review is that it helps us find the research gap so that we get to know what is already being done in the field that we are so interested and where else work is required. So we can, as researchers, be guided into the right academic direction.
Super. Very good. So she has used one keyword called research gap. Okay, I'll come to it. Any other answers? And there we have Ms. Pooja Saha. Context of research. Identify the gaps, sources, citations that credit the authors. Okay. Rajdeep Singh, review the view of author. Okay. Murali to study around topic. Okay. Anything else?
Ma'am, I think literature review also has one important function. It is to state that how far the work has been done in this area, where our research stands, and where we are going to take it further, and what would be the future scope for the research. So that would be in the entire timeline of the research area where our research stands. That is one thing. And secondly, it will also point out primary sources, secondary sources, and tertiary sources which are utilized in our research.
Fine. Good. Okay. Then. Yes, you are trying to talk.
Ma'am, I want to add something.
Yes, please.
Ma'am, I think the literature review also helps us to make assumptions, or you may say hunches or hypotheses for the research which we are going to do, so that we get the direction in which way we have to go. So to find out the objectives and hypothesis, literature review helps.
Okay, you have come up with the word called hypothesis. Okay, good. Anything else? Aparna, it will help
It
us to
also
others
it
in their
also helps
idea
to
pathway. Okay, good, very good. Any other
it also helps to give the rationale of our research, because if we get to know with the literature review how much work has been done, then why we are going to do in the same research. So with the help of literature review, we'll know the work which has already been done and what the different thing we are going to do, and this will help to write us the rationale of the research.
very good. Anything else? Anyone wants to say anything? Just your bare idea of what literature review is. Okay, fine. Now, I'll just give you the meaning of the word literature review and how it is being done, and then I'll move on to the slides. Literature review is, see, you choose a topic and you go ahead with that. Okay, your abstract is selected. So you have to definitely do a literature review now. First and foremost, you are not the only soul on earth who has decided to do a research on that particular topic. You agree?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Many research has already been done on that particular topic, or many people have already thought about the very same way or the very same angle that you have thought. Yeah, at times like it's like telepathy, more than telepathy, one idea being thought by many people, kind of a chaos theory. Yes, so it's something like that. So your first job is you start browsing on your topic and you find out as to how many people have done research on your topic before. So you can keep a timeline, you can keep a time limit. For example, this is 2025. So if it is a PhD thesis, you can make a study on this. You can make a literature review for the past 1 decade, for the past 10 years. So it would be like 2015 to 2025. Clear? If it is going to be a research paper, a paper that you make for a conference, or a paper that you make ready for journal publication, you can focus on the literature review for the past 5 years, just half the decade. Okay, half the decade, or you can even keep it from 5 to 7. 5 to 7, it depends. At times you may get more resources, 5 to 7 years. So when you make a time span of a decade, 10 years, you may tend to get sources that may range anywhere between 150 to 400. You understand? When you minimize this timeline from 10 years to half a decade, just 5 years, naturally, your resources will also divide itself into half. So it will be anywhere between 75 to 200, the resources, the papers that you get. Now, what is your very first job once you have got all these papers, all these resources? What are you going to do? Just save it in your desktop?
No. We'll refer it and then we'll proceed with our research.
Very good. So once you save it in your desktop, or you take hard copies, or you try your best to get the primary source, whatever it may be, your first and foremost job, once you have collected the sources, is you start reading. You read as many reviews as much possible. At least you can read one paper a day, not more than that. Because we also have our own attention span, right? We cannot be reading 4 or 5 papers. No. And I prefer that you always have a hard copy. Please don't mind about spending money on taking printouts. I have this problem with my own scholars. They say, ma'am, I will read the novel online. Online, the novel is available, primary sources available. I'll read it. What do you think about this? Of course, the generation has changed. Almost everyone is a tech savvy now. I do agree. But when it comes to sources, be it a primary source or a secondary source, whatever source it may be, how are you supposed to read? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, personally speaking, I have the habit of underlining key parts and writing footnotes and all this. That is more possible in the physical mode. And to be very precise, I personally prefer written word physical copy rather than the e-copy when it comes to research or reading.
Good, thank you, sir. So always, you can spend money on purchasing books. Now, when it comes to Amazon and Flipkart, the books are pretty cheap. They give you a lot of discounts. You need not go to a bookshop and get it. Now, when a book is like 400, you can get the book for 250 on Amazon and Flipkart. It's possible. So please do always go in for hard copies, real copies in your hand, and start reading. And when it comes to primary source, you are supposed to read the primary source at least thrice. And each time you read the novel, you get a different perspective. You see the story from a different angle. That's why you are asked to read the primary source at least thrice. And as sir told, always have a pencil. Please don't have that habit of using a pen and scribbling on the primary source. Don't do that. It's a book. It's not a note. Notes you can scribble. It's a white paper. You can scribble with a pen. But when it is a book, use a pencil. If you're very keen, use stick notes on certain pages where you feel certain important quotations that you are able to read. You have found some important quotations. You can highlight. Just like dog's ears, you can put all the stick pads to the corners. Use a pencil. Wherever you feel that this particular quotation uttered by the female protagonist or the male protagonist, it's going to help for your research, highlight. This is not quite possible when it comes to online. And even if it is possible through an online resource, you cannot track back. So tracking back what you have highlighted is pretty tough when it comes to online resources. So you start doing this job. So each paper have a file. All the papers you have taken a printout, and one paper a day you're reading, you're making a review, and you're keeping it aside. So after you finish one paper, at the back side of the paper, the things that you have to highlight are: number one, what was the aim of the paper? What was the methodology that was used? And what was the finding? Just 3 points. I'm repeating. After reading each paper, you are expected to write at the end of the paper the aim and goal, the objective of the paper, the methodology that was used, okay, how the study was made, and what was the finding. Just 3. Okay. So for maybe 150 to 200 papers, how much of time will you take to make this literature review?
At least 2 days.
You mean few days, sir?
Two.
2 days are enough.
Yes, ma'am. At least 200 papers. The focus area would differ if we keep on focusing. Otherwise, it will be just a reading.
I would take 1 week at least.
For a PhD thesis, I usually give 3 to 6 months of time for my scholars to make this literature review. Okay. And both of you who replied, you seem to be very, very fast. Okay. It takes 3 months to 6 months to make a literature review for a doctoral research. So at the end of making this literature review, after a span of say 6 months or 3 months or 4 months, when the scholars come to you, your first job is to ask, what is the literature gap? So someone used that term, that keyword I even mentioned then, when I asked you what is literature review. What is the gap that you have found out? So what do you mean by gap? This is a very nice word. What is literature gap, by the way?
So what do we found in the earlier research was done and what we have done in our research? So what we have tried to resolve in our literature.
Jai
Hind, ma'am.
Yes.
Jai Hind, ma'am. Ma'am, we can say that how work is ever different from other work. What new thing we find in our research?
Ma'am, the area that has not been explored before.
Okay, good. Then
Yeah, the scope where we can, ma'am, the scope of the area in our research, where we can dig deeper for our findings. Research gap.
okay,
What is
good.
the possibility of doing further research?
That's all.
Be an amendment what we have done earlier and by the and we have found something new in that review, in our review.
Yeah, what is missing in that piece and what was not, unresolved, the unresolved issues, finding out. That is literature gap, I feel.
Very good. Next.
And what we found somewhat better than past, madam.
Okay. Fine. All your replies to this question. I'll tell you what this literature gap is. As you told, you are going to say, or you're going to see as to how your work is going to be very, very different, how your work is very innovative, creative, when compared to all the previous research that has been done. Say there are 200 papers that have been already done on this particular topic. You are going to state as to how your paper is going to be very, very different when compared to all these 200 researchers. And as one of the participants stated, you can also say as to what are the things that are not still solved. The problem remains a problem even now, and how you are going to solve that particular problem that you're going to state in your paper. This is called a literature gap. You find out the literature gap and you also give suggestions as to how you're going to bridge the gap, bridge the literature gap. Yes? Now coming to the way you're structuring your literature review. So it all starts about you define the scope, okay, the aim of your paper. Second is you clarify your research topic or your question. What specific problem are you addressing and what are your objectives? Objectives we have already presented in the abstract part. So now you're going to make your problem, you're narrowing down, tapering down your problem after you do your literature review as you have identified the literature gap. And you say as to what is your specific problem that you're going to address. Then you set boundaries. You decide on the scope, the specific time periods, the regions. Regions is the place where you're going to do your field work, your analysis, your methodology. Okay? And how you're going to do this research. Then is you identify your key concepts. What themes or keywords are central to your review. So which means once you do your literature review and you identify the literature gap, you're once again addressing what? You're once again coming back to what? Can anyone answer to this question?
Ma'am, can you repeat the question, please? Ma'am.
You have made a literature review and you have identified your literature gap after a hard work of 6 months. What should you touch upon again?
Research problem.
What are the literature? What are the research gaps that are
Research
still
problem
left?
and objectives.
Sorry, ma'am, I'm answering the research gaps that are still to be addressed. No, based on the research outcomes of the previous papers that we researched, what are the research gaps still needs to be addressed? Needs to be.
Thank you, sir. So once you finish your research, yes, Archana has come up. Good. Once you finish your literature review and you have identified your literature gap, you come again to your research or the paper title and you once again refine your abstract. Your abstract is prone to changes after you finish your literature review. Yes or no? I'm talking about this is for a doctoral research. For a paper publication or a conference publication, nothing can be done. Okay. You have submitted your abstract has been selected. It's done. But for a PhD thesis, you will once again touch up a kind of a tinkering work. You redo your abstract. Because after a study of 6 months, there are certain things that you have explored that are very new to you. And you think definitely your abstract needs a change. Yes? Clear now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. On to the next slide, please, Ms. Janvi. Miss Janvi is here. Next is search for relevant literature. So this is in the process of searching doing your literature review. How do you search your articles? Because when you type your title and when you start searching for papers, the one thing that we need to understand is the title that you type in Google is not your finalized title. Yes or no?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Not your title. Just like how the abstract is undergoing a lot of revisions, your title will also undergo a lot of revisions. So you cannot keep this title as a finalized title and make a literature review. That's not possible. So how do you go in for that relevant literature, the relevant resource? So you can use academic databases like PubMed, Google Scholar, JSTOR, or Scopus, so that you can you can prune your title, make it a keyword, and start searching. This will help you to fetch relevant papers, relevant resources. Search using combinations.
Could you please repeat the sites, ma'am? Google Scholar.
It's very much available here on the PPT, sir.
On the screen it is there.
Right?
No, PPT is not changed, ma'am.
No, it is changed now.
Please
No. Yeah, you are right, Miss
change the
Janvi. PubMed. I'm repeating, sir. However, Google Scholar, JSTOR, or Scopus.
Yeah.
You all have IDs in Scopus, which means you all have papers on Scopus. So if you only
No,
if you
ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
no, okay. So try publishing at least one Scopus paper, okay, so that you have an ID and you can access all other papers. It is always good to have a Scopus ID. Search using combinations of keywords. Combinations of you pair up, okay? That we can do it very sensibly, as people especially from the grounds of literature can do it. You put in two words and you combine it, and you can also use some Boolean operators like and, or, and you can try it while you search. Last is you prioritize peer-reviewed articles, books, and authoritative sources. So you always give importance to articles, peer-reviewed articles, that is research papers, books, and sources that are authoritative. And be very, very careful, because nowadays many links, they come up saying we publish papers. Okay, you mail them your paper, they also ask you for payment, you also do the payment, and then the website it no longer exists. So when you search in for a particular journal, check if it's genuine. Please check if it's genuine, because preparing a paper, it involves a lot of hard work. You spend your time, and it is your brainchild. Okay, you literally you squeeze your brain and you take out an idea. So when you communicate for a journal, please do check if the journal is a genuine source. And also I wanted to say, if you're in Facebook, if you're on Facebook or many social networking sites, many do now ping asking if you want your research to be published on Scopus, if you want your research to be published on Taylor and Francis. We support Sage publication. Please do contact us. How many of you have come across this kind of source? Yes. So at times, or maybe our organization has an expectation from us that we have to publish papers in Scopus. Okay. or we have to publish papers in Scopus that have a high impact factor. This is all expectation from the university. But so naturally, what happens to us? We have a stress, we get a pressure, and we become very, how to check authenticity of the paper, rules to share, how to identify research gap. I'll address all your questions. Just wait, okay? Give me some time. So naturally, when the institution where we work has this kind of expectation, what we become very, what happens to us? We become very, one of you can complete.
Desperate?
Very good, very good. We become very desperate. Okay. Of course, we are capable of writing. We are capable of writing. We can allocate some time and sit writing. We have the capacity of searching journals. We can communicate to a journal. But in spite of all these capabilities, we become desperate. And we go to these sources where they say they can help us with publication. The problem is, they get your paper, okay, your brainchild is actually stolen. They ask you to pay a very huge amount, at times even 3 lakhs, and they abscond. Abscond in the sense they come up with many excuses. They say, ma'am, we communicated your paper, but there was no reply from the journal. We communicated your paper, but the review is yet to come. We communicated your paper to the journal, but they say that your paper is not of a great academic quality. So what about the money? I gave you 3 lakhs. What happened to it? What happened to it? It is gone, swaga, over. So even if you are very desperate, at times I even say you can just keep quiet without publishing a paper. That's far better. That's far better rather than risking like this. And your name also gets notified. You understand? People like they come to know that this person from this university is trying to publish a paper by giving money. Don't you need not get such a bad badge. Instead, you can just keep quiet. So be very careful about choosing articles and coming up to, ma'am, how to check authenticity. Yeah, but that's why I asked as to how many of you, how many of you have Scopus ID? See, when you go on to the Scopus website, to the right corner, you can download list of Scopus journals. Okay, it's a very big Excel sheet, and it is for all subjects, not only for English, not only for arts people, it's for everyone. Computer science, engineering, humanities, sociology, psychology, law. Okay, it covers journals from all fields. You can download it. If possible, I'll send it to Ms. Janvi. Okay. Once you download, open the Excel sheet, and all the details in the Excel sheet are very clear. You can see the genuinity of a particular journal in this Excel sheet. At times, a journal gets this Scopus index just for 5 years.
Excuse me, ma'am. Voice was not clear. Please explain this thing again.
Which one?
Checking the authenticity of the journal.
Please go to the Scopus website and download the list of Scopus journals that is available. It is an Excel sheet.
Ma'am, 1 minute. The Scopus website takes me to the Elsevier.
Sorry, sir?
The Scopus website, when I try to visit the Scopus website, it directs me to the Elsevier.
I'll send you the list, sir. I'll send you the list. You are maybe searching on a wrong website. I'll send you the list of Scopus journals. It is an Excel sheet. So this certain journals, for example, there is a journal called Asian Journal of Human Services. this journal, it has got its Scopus index for just 5 years. So if you publish your papers within 5 years, your papers gets that Scopus indexed. Okay. So after 5 years, what happens? You have to wait, which means don't communicate to the journal at that time. Because at times when the paper is not Scopus indexed, your paper, they receive the paper, they get the payment, but you don't get the Scopus index. You understand what I'm saying? It is there, but it's not a Scopus paper. So all these details, you can check it on the Excel sheet that is provided by the Scopus website. Okay. And coming up to how do you identify the research gap? That's what I told you already. Research gap is you see as to what are the methods, objectives, and findings that were done by the previous researchers. And then you finally say as to how your paper is very, very different, or what are the areas that were untouched by the past researchers. That's how you find it out. Over to the next slide, please, Ms. Janvi.
Yeah, ma'am. One clarification in the
Evaluate.
In the Scopus website, I see a link called download Scopus source list. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, sir. That's the list. Evaluate and select sources. First is relevance. Does the study directly relate to your research topic? So when you take up a source, I told you you can take up almost 150 to 400 sources when you make a literature review for the past, literature review for the past 1 decade. So how do you select these sources? How do you evaluate? First thing is, see if the paper is directly related to your topic, to your area of interest. Second, credibility. Is the source from a reputable journal or an author? So is the website that you are searching in, is it genuine? Is the author genuine? So just by looking at it, you'll be able to sense it. Okay. Date. Prioritize recent research unless older works are foundational. So when you put it in a file, it must be in a chronological order with the latest on the top. Okay. And last is methodology. Assess the rigor and reliability of the methods used. So now we have many methods to do your research. So just check in what methodology each paper has done. Okay, how they have made the research. Is it a field work or a case study or quantitative study or qualitative study? What type of method they have adopted? Is it reliable? And also see the hard work and dedication that is put on the paper. Right? Next slide, please. Organize your findings. Now, once everything is done, please do organize the literature into themes, categories such as chronological development of the field. Okay. For example, how is postmodernism today? How is the idea of postmodernism today? How was the idea of postmodernism in the year 2000, 2010, 2015? There is definitely a drastic change. Yes. So you have to trace this back. Thematic, it can be thematic, it can be theoretical, it can be conceptual, it can be chronological, or it can be even methodological. Or it could be prone to certain contradictions and debates. Okay, like pros and cons, certain do's and don'ts, certain things that you agree, certain things that you don't agree. But whatever you post, whatever opinion you have, it must be justified. And what method are you using to justify that? Yes. Next slide, please.
Ma'am?
So now, see, ma'am, can we have all these questions at the end, please? Write the literature review. So how do you structure your literature review? Introduction is, you state the topic and purpose of the review. You give the topic and the purpose of the review. What is your purpose of doing a literature review? Explain the criteria for selecting the literature. So what was your reason for selecting that particular literature? And you outline the structure of the review. So how you did this review? What is the structure behind? You present this in the introduction part. Second is body of your literature review. So coming up to the body, the main ideas that are to be consumed under literature review, present a synthesis of the literature, not a series of summaries. So many times what students do is they write a literature review for almost 40 to 45 pages and it looks more like a summary, or at times, as the word is used, series of summaries. You put in all the summaries together and you say this is literature, this is literature review. No, that is not literature review. You cannot say like I read this paper. You are giving a summary of each of the papers that you have read. I don't want a summary. I want a synthesis. Synthesis is, for example, paper number 1, you feel it is very, very synonymous to paper number 10, except for the conclusion part, except for the finding part. You make a comparison in your literature review. So this paper titled, written by so-and-so in this year, has come up with this kind of a methodology. This very same methodology has been used by this researcher in their paper titled this almost after a decade. However, their finding has differed. You understand? This is what I mean by the word synthesis. You don't make a summary, rather you become more critical. You find out the similarities between papers. You find out the differences between papers. You trace as to how this idea has developed over the years, over a decade. Group studies by themes, trends, or methodologies. That's what I meant. Do you find a bunch of papers, say 4 papers, 5 papers that share the very same theme, very same trend, very same methodology? Discuss relationships, differences, gaps in the literature. So as you make this comparison, as you jot down these differences, similarities, comparisons, you discuss the gaps in the literature as well. Highlight any unresolved questions. So as you read the paper, as a researcher, as a person who has a great blend towards research, as a person who has that caliber for doing a research, when you read a paper, your first reading itself, you will be able to identify certain things that were missed out or some mistakes on the paper. On any paper. For example, if you're taking all the 150 papers, in all the 150 papers, you may be able to find an error. It's possible. The thing is, you have to have a critical reading. You have to read the paper from the eyes of a critic. So when you do it, you can also highlight those things which you find very deductive in a research paper. This is something wrong. Instead of this methodology, they could have done this methodology. Though they have used this methodology, they have missed out this finding. They have missed out this finding. This particular issue is not at all addressed in this paper. This particular issue is not at all solved in this paper. You can write all these things in your literature review and you can highlight it. When you highlight, you're indirectly saying that you are going to address all those mistakes, all those issues, all those unresolved questions. You understand? Summarize the main findings from the review. highlight gaps or areas for future research, explain how the review supports your research question. So there was one respondent participant who used the word research question. Sorry, that is a hypothesis. Hypothesis. So how the research gap that you have identified is going to support your hypothesis that you have to mention. Is it clear? This is how you write your literature review. Now, just like abstract that you mailed me yesterday, if any of you, if you have difficulty in framing a literature review, you can definitely mail me. Or if you have any literature review in your hand now, you can post it. Of course, going through a literature review, it's not possible. That cannot be done in 5 minutes. I can get back to you if it is mailed. Yes. So this is for today. So today we have learned about what literature review is. How do you do your literature review? How do you search relevant materials? How do you find if a journal is genuine or not? How you identify your literature gap? And how you write a literature review? How you structure a literature review? Fine. And for tomorrow's FTP, that is day 4, I'll just work on a few more fields and I'll get back. Now the forum is open for questions. Mail ID, mine, I'm typing.
Today's PPT, if you can share, that will be really helpful, ma'am. Please.
You can get it from Ms. Janvi, sir. I cannot do that. She will do it.